What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Why We Love PlayStation VR. Sitting all the way across the city from me this week and every week, he's king of all VR kings, the Sofa King himself. It's Jeremy King.
Hey, all right. And there was no evading me or any kind of wordplay on the game.
Not feeling creative today, no.
Yeah, no, that's all right. Well, I can see the red and blue glow from here coming from Bryan's studio room, magic room, the magic, where it happens. It's Bryan, and Tornado.
Somewhere. Yeah, hopefully she doesn't shut this thing down. And every week on Why We Love PlayStation VR, we dip into the PlayStation VR archive, we pull out a game, at random, we dust the blow off of it. We give it a little bit of time. We give it a lot of time. We play the crap out of it. We see if it's been given any love by developers, any updates, any DLC. Then we let you know, the loyal game cats, if it's worth your time. That being said, Jeremy, what game did we decide to play this week?
Evasion. That's it. It's a lackluster title. Evasion.
Evasion, developed by Archiact Interactive, released October 9th, 2018. Wow, so long ago. For $39.99. It has been on sale 7 or 8 times, and recently even for as little as $8, and now retails for $20.
Wow.
It's a $20 game. It was a $40 game just 2 years ago.
I would say it's a shooter, but from what I keep hearing online, they call it a bullet hell shooter.
Yeah, I mean, bullet hell is pretty appropriate. It's also kind of a wave shooter. You know, I mean, like when you really boil it down, it's not like the traditional wave shooters we've gotten on PlayStation VR, but I still think it is, by all definition, maybe a bullet hell wave shooter.
Oh, totally. Yeah. That's
all
a
right.
good call, Bryan.
Real quick here, we talked about the sales, but let's talk about the patches a little bit. For anyone who hasn't played this since launch, here's what's happened. We are now up to version 1.10. There's been a ton of bug fixes along the way. You couldn't hold the trigger button down to just fire. Like you had to ding, 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 ding. And like after 20 minutes, everybody's like, my finger hurts. This is ridiculous. And so they changed that so you can hold it down for like kind of a slow burst of bullets. December 8th, 2018, they added difficulty levels. Craziness. Where were those before? Those were easy, normal, and hard difficulty options. And then February 12th, 2019, they added the kill streak update, which is basically they added scoring into the game for the first time with online leaderboards. I don't know where that was before either, but so they've updated this quite a bit. Give me the basic premise, what we're doing here.
So you're on some alien planet. I don't really know if they specify what planet you're on, but you're basically just traversing towards this mining facility. I don't really even know too much. I know that the story unfolds as you go, but basically what you're there to do is shoot and kill. You have 4 classes to choose from. Very much like what you would think with Destiny or, you know, any of these other games that are out there right now that you would pick a class and then you basically go and shoot shit and survive.
Yeah. I will say you brought up the story, so I do want to talk about that for a second. I mean, just forgettable, right? There's voice acting going on. They even give you sort of give you different views of the level before entering each stage. And there's voiceovers happening during that, and really, I am just I've checked out. I checked out, waiting for the cutscene to be over, because I'm just not interested. The voice acting, I think, is really cheesy, and just like, dude, just let me get to it, man. Like, just don't. Let's not pretend this game has a real adventure going on.
Yeah.
Like, let's just get to the shooting.
Just do the game. Yeah. See, I found the voice acting where it was pointless. I didn't think it was bad. Like, the only time I found it to be bad was when he was trying to be humorous in it. It just fell off as if he was writing. Kind of like when you write a script and make me read it. Yeah. You know how it seems
never
unnatural?
Goes well. Yeah.
No. That's like what this dude was doing to me when it came to the humor. The other parts, he was okay. Like, it was bearable. It wasn't, like, intolerable. But it felt unnecessary because the story was just unnecessary as well, almost.
Unnecessary. You know? Yeah, I don't actually think the voice acting was bad. I should clarify. It was very unnecessary, and the whole thing felt very generic. It just sounded like voice actors, and maybe even voiceovers, the lines that we'd heard like 1,000 times before. It's just filler. Oh, yeah. It's just filler, and like, I mean, I don't know if I'm glad that it's there, but I don't know. I probably could have done without it too.
I hear you.
There's 2 versions you can play, or 2 modes you can play, and that is basically the campaign, which is technically the story mode where you progress from level to level to level, and you know there's missions that you're accomplishing, and then there's just survival mode, which is just, hey, we're going to give you wave after wave after wave after wave after wave and see how long you can survive.
Yeah.
But this does have DualShock 4 and aim support. I'm scared to ask, what controller did you use?
I'm going to tell you, I used both, but the very first time I sat to play this game, I just grabbed the DualShock because I was just like, I got to charge the aim controller, I'm sure, and I don't want to have to stand. There was just all these things in my mind. So I just went with the good old DualShock. And I got to tell you, I kept intending, because I started to charge the the aim controller as I started the game, and I figured eventually maybe after 15 minutes I'd just jump up and switch.
Yeah.
But, I had such a fucking blast playing the game that I must have sat there and played with the DualShock for, it was probably about an hour and 15. I was sweating, like sweat was coming around from everything, and I was like, I should take a break. My face is getting sweaty and itchy. So I played an hour and a half. An hour 15 minutes of it with the DualShock, and then it was the second half that I did with the aim controller and the multiplayer or the waves.
So the DualShock was pretty good.
Yeah, it actually was not. The only awkward thing is, so when you're holding the DualShock, the character on the screen doesn't naturally hold it like this. They hold it like, you know what I mean. So if you wanted to mimic what you're doing in the game, you'd have to tilt it slightly so that it looks like an actual gun, But it actually worked great. I was just like,
Nice.
Yeah, it worked awesome.
There was a point today when you and I were playing where these enemies were flying overhead, and I had the aim controller, and I was like, oh, and I looked straight up, and I was shooting, and they were directly above me, and I was like, God, I fucking love the aim controller. Sometimes it just felt so good.
It feels so much better.
And it is one of those games. There are certainly games like Bravo Team that don't feel like it's really 1-to-1. That seems like it's a little sluggish. This felt really, really good. It felt like the gun that was on screen or in the headset was the same one that I was holding, and it felt really, really responsive. Like there's no weight to it, right? It's like you move and it moves, and that's perfect. That's what I'm looking for with an aim-controlled game.
And there's no weird disconnect. You know what I mean? You know how like the aim controller can sometimes the hands won't move and then they'll jab, or even with the DualShock, there was none of that. It was constantly, no matter where you were moving, shooting, it was right on.
So you progress through the levels and you're shooting stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there are a couple things that happen, I guess, while you're shooting stuff. It's usually a ton of enemies on screen at once, right?
Oh, wicked, yeah.
But when you take them down, you can actually use a tether mechanic to grab power-ups from them.
Yep.
Tell me about the power-ups.
So, basically this too, and it was great because when I was doing solo and single player, it was like a formula I had down. It's like weaken them, right before you kill them, they kind of get that like skull crossbone thing above their head, where then you can tether them. You can't tether them until that happens, and it's usually when they're probably what I would say 15% health, maybe 20. And if you shoot them like one more time, they're dead, and you won't get that potential for a power up or a health thing. So the health things, when you see one, you grapple the person, tether to them. Depends on what class, what happens. So there's 4 classes that you choose from. Each tether has kind of a different thing that happens at the end of it, if you will. So the class I went with, which I think we would think it was a striker.
I think so.
Which is the one where you tether them, and then once you're tethered to them, not only are they kind of frozen there, and you can then just shoot them and kill them, but it also creates a weird orb around them where other enemies are attracted and stuck to them so that you can have them all clumped together and shoot them. That was the one neat thing that the class I chose to do kind of did. So when you tether them, you get that neat little thing, and then you get the potential for a power-up, a yellow one, which when you collect enough of those, then your power-up thing is kind of ready, where then you can press the triangle button and then hit the tether button and the trigger at the same time, and you just do mass amounts of damage.
It's nice because I think the last character class I was playing with was the Warden, and I was in the Warden is basically like a tank. He moves slower, but he's got tons and tons of armor, and so he's harder to take down. But then he's not really great on the offense. Like that's the balance, that's the trade off. And so I'm like just shooting and shooting and shooting and shooting and shooting, and so I'm collecting these yellow orbs and slowly powering up my my gun. and then when it's finally at full blast, like the triangle, and then I'm like, and I was like, whoa, this is like dramatically different. And I absolutely loved, like the really powerful shots that he was able to, to take down the enemies with. There was just so many on screen at once, and I was taking them down so slow but then once I had the power upped weapon for that
Yeah.
short period of time, it was just taking down one after another, and you definitely felt way more powerful at a certain point.
Oh yeah, it was awesome, and I had such a formula down where I would duck and shoot, blah blah, blah, and then I get all the power ups, and I'd engage, and then I would just go straight for it, da, 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 fuck all of you, and then just make my progress until I hunkered down again and did the whole same thing. And a lot of times you just know when you're about to power up, so you just go running in, da 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 da, and get your tether and just. It was pretty sweet.
But also I loved when you and I were playing together because you can heal each other just by holding down one of the other triggers. I think it was what, L2, L1, I forget.
That forwarding one, yeah.
Yeah, and you can be healing and shooting at the same time. So there's all this multitasking going on, and
Yeah.
so it's always beneficial when you stay near each other, but also at the same time when you grab the health power ups, the health orbs. It creates that ring around you. You don't just automatically gain health. You have to stand in the ring, and it's like, dude, get over here, get in the ring, get in the ring. It's like, then again, more reasons to stay near each other.
It was like Borderlands because the game is very familiar. Visually reminds me of Red Faction Guerrilla, big time.
Wow.
Remember that Red Faction Guerrilla?
I do.
It reminds me of that one, big time visually. The same type of planet, the same type of structures, destructible environments, which I thought was a pretty fucking neat little add-on they had in this game. So you can duck behind certain things, and of course, the more fire you take, portions of what you duck behind crumble. Even rock formations in the middle of the map, if there's enemies behind them, the rock formations start to crumble. So that was pretty neat. So you couldn't stay protected for too long because the bullets were, damaging the thing you were hiding behind. So I dug that. I thought that was pretty sick.
It reminded you of a Red Faction game, but like, did you like the look of it?
I mean, it was basic. It was a very sparse, like not much life happening on this.
Mm-hmm.
It was just really, it reminded me of like an old Unreal Tournament, where it was just a map for a multiplayer game with a single player element added into it, because like you were saying, it's a wave shooter. So all it is you approach this arena, then the waves come, you're shooting them, and then you progress to the next area. So it's kind of like they took the rails off and let you move to the next map, which I liked. It tricked me into thinking the game was bigger than it was, but you know what it is and know what's coming up. It's very predictable.
Yeah.
But I thought the scope. Well, I don't want to get ahead of myself because the enemies too. There's certain enemies that again, the types when they approach, but there's a lot of them. A lot of different varying enemies. Like the ground type. There's the rolly kind that explode. There's the rolly ones that just hunker down and shoot you. There's the other ones that kind of roll out of the way. Then there's the land ones that run around, the humanoid ones. Then there's the sky ones. So there's several of each. And as the game progresses, they just send all of them at you, to increase the difficulty. And then the mass enemies, which was pretty sick too.
There's a decent amount of variety, but I still couldn't get past the feeling that I'm just like, I mean, just like non-stop the entire time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's basically what you're doing. And then like the one issue we were discussing with the multiplayer is it is very sluggish when you're strafing. It's just like,
so slow.
And I wish there was a sprint button because your movement is decent enough, but there's times in a shooter, especially a bullet hell shooter, where you might want to dash for cover, and this doesn't have that. You just run, slowly run,
Yeah, totally agree.
Duck, shoot.
I do like that there's different movement options.
They gave you a couple, 3 of them, right?
There's 3 of them, right? And one is sort of like a teleport, which is like I can't imagine anyone actually wanting to play that. It's the teleportation version of full locomotion, and it's awful. And then there's my favorite one, which I don't play with, but I think it's hilarious, ridiculous, and kind of cool at the same time, which is the jog mode, you're holding the analog stick, but you're not moving. But if you jog in place, the game recognizes that your aim controller is moving up and down,
movement.
and so you can fake it and just go do this. But
Yeah, yeah,
but man, if you want to jog in place, it's so much better. It's one step less funnier than Hop Along the Badlands, where you ride the stick
Oh,
horse
jeez.
around. I don't know if it actually would help with somebody who had motion sickness, but like if you're
Yeah,
actually jogging in place and like convincing your brain that you're moving somewhere, I feel like
yeah.
that might be an actually decent solution. And if not, it's just really fun to watch your friends jog in place when they play
Right?
this
Yeah,
game.
no shit. I
And
did
then
it as far as the tutorial, and that was it. It's like
yeah,
choosing your movement speed. It's
yeah,
like, no, this isn't the one for me.
totally what I did too. Totally what I did too. I
Yeah.
thought it was hilarious, and I moved on. And of course, it's full locomotion, and that is the one that I think most people will stick with.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Campaign's about, I don't know, 5-ish hours.
Yeah. If you die quite a few times, you could get it done. I would think in under 3. I
Wow.
would, you know.
Wow. Okay.
I, I,
I,
I definitely
it's
feel that.
it's been a while since I completed the campaign,
Yeah.
but that is but 3 is I think going through it pretty fast. A lot of these enemies are bullet sponges, man. And
Oh my God. Yeah.
and at first I think the smaller ones that are bullet sponges, you're like, okay, this is totally tolerable. I don't mind, because you are trying to do your best to to dodge incoming attacks, and it's sort of like, they feel like powerful enemies. But man,
Hmm.
the further you get into this game, the bigger bullet sponges the enemies become, and it's
Yeah.
just like, I think I guess it gets kind of irritating after a while.
It does, because they don't make you a bullet sponge any more than you were at the very beginning of the game. So you're no more powerful. You start out the game just as powerful as you finish it.
Right.
And I feel like that's where you feel weaker instead of stronger as the game progresses. Because, like, Samus, or that's how you pronounce it, Samus,
Yeah, Samus.
Metroid.
Yeah.
It always sounds funny when I say it. But with her, you start the game out weaker. Well, generally, you start out strong and they take everything away, and then you're weak and you progress through and gain everything again, and you start feeling more powerful as the game progresses. Like every other type of game, mostly. This one, it didn't. You start out equal, you end inferior because the enemies become a lot stronger and you don't.
Right.
So the challenge and the difficulty is kind of just lame in that regard. It's not based off of strategy or tactics in the battlefield and how you and them, what you've learned, and now here you are. It's just they take more hits now, and I still got to do the same: hiding, tethering, getting orbs, healing orbs, that kind of stuff. It's just the same old stuff at the end of the game.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
It's a little
And
bit disappointing.
and I think the other thing about that is that as you progress through the game, one of the things I would have really enjoyed was to see like way different environments, like make me feel like I'm actually getting somewhere and progressing
Yeah.
toward a destination, right? There's the voiceovers that are trying to give you that, but really you're either in these big alien deserts with metal structures coming out of them, or
Yeah.
like in these caves that
Yeah.
and none of it looks, in my book, particularly interesting. The art design is, I mean, just kind of basic.
Well, that's the one thing I gotta say, and I don't know, maybe if you felt differently. Where graphically, yeah, it was pretty basic. It felt like you were rewinding yourself about 8 years. But again, it's VR, and that's where the other portion of it comes from. I don't know if it truly feels VR. The environments, do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Hmm.
it doesn't look like you're looking at a static picture. It's not like that, but it also doesn't feel like some of these other VR games like Resident Evil. You know what I
Right.
mean? Where you really feel that you're there. It's kind of in between, for me at least, where it looked VR, but I still knew I was playing a game and I didn't feel immersed in the environment. And maybe that's because it was so sparse and barren that there was nothing there to let me approach and get close and look around. There was no leaves brushing around me as I ran through a jungle. So maybe that's where that disconnect came from, that it was
Yeah.
just barren,
I mean, when you compare it to something like, I don't know, the closest analog is probably Farpoint, right? Because there's
Yeah.
again a very much an alien desert beginning,
Yeah.
but that was so good. It felt like there was sand, blowing around on the ground and like in your face, and there was still an amazing amount of variety in that game, despite the fact that it's like, oh, it's an alien planet that's kind of a desert,
Mhm.
and Evasion just doesn't have that. And I think when the game launches at $40, you expect that. You expect it to have like that really. They call it in the PlayStation store description. They say AAA graphics, and I was like, I think you need to reconsider your definition of that term.
Yeah.
Because this is not AAA graphics. We've seen far better. This is
Mhm.
like, you know, I mean, about as standard as it gets. Somebody says, "Hey, give me
C
an
plus.
C plus, yeah,
Yeah.
C plus graphics, not AAA."
You passed, but it's not going on the fridge. You know.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. All right, so tell me about the other mode in this game.
What the horde mode or whatever we
Yeah,
call it?
survival mode. Yeah, sure.
Survival mode. So it's basically, a portion of the game where you'd expect. So, like, we were talking about this is a wave shooter. So basically, survival mode is the areas in the level you get to where the waves start.
Hmm.
It's just you don't walk there. You just load the game up and you're in that area.
Yeah,
And of course it's locked off with yellow or red, whatever barriers glowing, and then just enemies come at you, you shoot and kill them, and then it's like you survived. I didn't expect you to do that. Here's the second wave, and then it's the same, you know.
yeah. I feel like survival mode should be called "Let's just all admit what this game really is" mode. like
Yeah,
like let's
really.
let's strip away like the voice acting. Let's strip away any of the cutscenes, and be like, yeah, this is what this game really is at its core,
Hmm.
and we just got rid of all the extra bullshit.
Yeah, we just brushed it away. Here it is. Play it.
I feel like we both probably have a lot more to say about this game, but I think we can probably just rate it. We rate it
Sure.
and get all those extra thoughts out in our rating.
All right, just brush it away.
So what is our rating scale, Jeremy?
Oh, I will leave it pretty normal and straightforward today,
Okay.
actually. I have a stain on my table right here that looks like cock and balls. I can't stop looking at it. It's so funny. I wish I could show the camera to it. Mini ones, though, like Papa Smurfs. You'd be well endowed.
So cutting
So,
that out, Jeremy. What is the rating scale?
one, you got to race out, get this game. $40, $50, you don't care because it is fucking awesome. Two, yeah, 20, 15, 10. Let's wait for a bit of a sale. I got a tight ass wallet. I'm frugal. I'm going to enjoy the game, but I'll enjoy it more when it's on sale, so I'll wait. Three, it's so goddamn frugal. I don't want the thing. The game's going to suck no matter if you gave it to me or not. It would be like Papa Snip. No, I won't get into it. But,
Wow.
but yeah, you don't want this thing anywhere near you. So, Brian, what do you rate this sucker?
I think at launch, when this game was $40, and it needed quite a few patches, and leaderboards and scoring and all sorts of different things, I probably would have given this a 3. I've been like, no, save your money. Like, this is just isn't getting the message across. This isn't doing the thing you want it to do. I still have a lot of issues with it. Like,
Mhm.
they've got these 4 different character classes, but they're not really all that different. Like you and I were like, oh, this is my favorite one. This is my favorite one. And I switched to another one and go, this one's not all that different. Like, it doesn't do
Yeah.
that much different. And I think it was a pretty fucking poor excuse, honestly, to be like, we're only going to have 4 weapons in this game.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? It's like, here's your character, and he has this one weapon the entire game. Like, you don't get new weapons. You don't find them on the ground. You don't pick them up in an armory. You don't pick them up off fallen enemies. This is your character, and this is his weapon, and that is it. You do not progress, like you said. There is no upgrade tree. There's no you're no stronger at the end of the game than you were at the beginning of the game. And I will tell you that even though you don't have to keep hitting the trigger as much as you used to, you still have to hit the trigger pretty frequently.
Yeah.
And I was just like, how come I just can't hold it down for an endless stream of attacks? And the answer is because when you hold down the trigger, it starts charging up an attack. And so there should have been a workaround for that, like hit square to use your powered attack or something.
Yeah.
And I will say that there's just not a ton of variety here. I think that playing it by myself, I might still give this game a 3, because I'm just like, man, it's like the same thing over and over and over. And as the enemies become more and more bigger and bigger bullet sponges, I lose interest faster and faster and faster. But when I was playing today with you by my side, I was like, I think the fun of it was trying to keep each other alive and being able to talk to each other the whole time. Like, the game has game chat. Like, you don't have to go into a party, which is really nice. And so I think if you're interested in just like killing a few hours with a buddy, I think, you know, for the $20 price tag it's at now, I think you're in a much better place. So I'm going to give this a decent 2, because I do have fun playing this in multiplayer. But I think if you're playing it all by yourself, you might as well just skip it.
Right?
Yeah. What about you,
Nice.
man?
Imagine if they made a war movie and the two soldiers that were fighting on the battlefield were discussing some of the shit we were talking about on the battlefield. Christ. I think the enemies would stop and be like, "Oh, gentlemen,
Right.
can we, we
Right.
want to talk about this later?" Um, I got to say that normally this type of game, I don't know. I need story, as I've said many times before. In this type of game, it had no story.
Mm.
So when I sat down to play it, and I couldn't stop playing it. And when I then stopped playing it and started thinking about playing it, I was pretty fucking surprised at myself. I had a lot of fun with this game, single player and the multiplayer. I think
Nice.
there's a lot of flaws to it. There's a lot of things I wish they did. Like when we were playing multiplayer, too bad there wasn't something where our tethers both together could do something to the enemy
Mm.
if we both tethered them. Something like that. We tried jump rope with each other, and that kind of worked.
That was kind of
But
cool.
there's so many things wrong with the game, like with the weapons. They don't really vary too much. They're not all that powerful. There's a lot of things with the trigger, and yes, it does start to hurt your hand, and strafing's weird, and the environments are bland, and I don't know though. All that stuff aside, I had so much fun through the game as I played it. And yeah, the enemies were a pain in the ass at times, but I don't know. It just kept making me duck, cover, finding somewhere new. And I felt badass at times where I would be on a streak and it was like, no one can fucking stop it, and just tethering and whipping and shooting and blowing up. And I had a ball. The story and how weak it was didn't bother me. It wasn't like, oh, I got to rescue these things. Oh, there's oxygen eating away at their suits. Like I didn't care. I'm just like, all right, come on. I know I can kill those people now. I know I can make it without dying. They give you 3 lives until you have to do the whole level over again. But I mean, I do wish that the attacks were different. There's a lot of things I wish that we discussed in this, but I had an absolute blast. And I mean, I know I'm going on the price point of 20, but
And you should.
I
That's how much the
yeah,
game is now. That makes sense.
I honestly, I personally, right now, when I say yes, 1. I loved this game. I had so much fun with this game for all of its flaws, that I just thought it was so well worth it. And I think it's a game that I would show my friends and be like, "Oh, try this one out. It might not look great, but it's really fun." So I think for this, the fun factor boosted this to a 1. I'm going to say it's a weak 1. It's not like a very strong, powerful 1. It's a weak 1. But in my book, I surprised myself by instantly when I started playing. I'm like, I'm going to give this a 1. I love it. Like I
Nice.
knew it. So yeah, a 1 for Jeremy.
That's fantastic. I'm so glad to hear that because, man, like again, I did not like this game at all when it came out, and I'm so happy that there's been quite a few improvements. And yeah, it's I mean I had a lot of fun with you today, and
Yeah.
so that's why I think it's a pretty decent too.
Hmm.
But man, yeah, no, I'm really glad to hear that you had fun single player. That's
Yeah.
fantastic to hear. Awesome.
Right.
So I guess you should tell us in the comments below. What did you think of Evasion? Is it a 1, 2, 3? Did you love it? Hate it? Single player, co-op, the whole thing.
Yeah.
And also, what other games do you want us to play? The list is long; it keeps getting longer. If you've already recommended one, please recommend it again. We'll get to it eventually, I'm sure. I mean, there's only so many
Exactly.
games. There's only 15 coming out a week at this point.
No shit.
It's absolutely crazy. I can't believe it.
Right.
This month and next month are going to be absolutely insane. But
I can't wait till next year when I get to play some of these games that are coming out this month.
yeah, you really get the worst job on the channel.
Oh, I love it. It's great.
All right. Well, for another episode of Why We Love PlayStation VR, my name's Brian Paul,
And I'm Jeremy King.
and we'll see you next week.
Next week.
Yeah.